Hello and welcome to another episode of Offstage Conversation with your hosts Joanna and David. David's here with me today and we both know our guest today. So how do you know our guest and who are they?
Hello. So yes, today we are joined by Chris Yarnell, a wonderful actor, director, producer, general theatre maker. He goes into detail about it in the episode. He does basically everything. And so I know Chris from working with him up in London, and Joanna knows him from working at a Fringe show as well. So, Joanna, tell us a little bit about the episode today, what people can expect from it.
I think there's a lot of giggles in it. Chris is a very entertaining person and a good storyteller, but he talks about, as David's already mentioned, all of the different roles he's had within the industry and the importance of what an audience is and that collective consciousness of an audience, which is some details that were really, really interesting to discuss.
Lots of big questions today, yeah. So, as always, thank you for your support, and you can continue to support us by following us on Twitter and Instagram at OOB Theatre or Oob Theatre. You can find us on Facebook by searching for Out of Bounds Theatre. Our website is www.outofboundstheatre.co.uk, and our brand new Patreon is Out of Bounds Theatre, where you can find all kinds of bonus content. So if you enjoyed the show today and are looking for more, follow us there, and you can find all the links in the show description.
So join us, Joanna and David, and our guest Chris Yarnell, as we have our offstage conversation.
So, hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm all right. I'm at that point where, when you haven't really spoken out loud to anybody so far that day. So this is kind of my first real conversation with a human being. So my voice will probably get a little bit higher as we.
You don't do the warm-ups and everything that all
actors
be honest, do. Like...
I did a little warm-up. Today. We've just got our keyboard up and running. So I was doing a little just to try and get myself. Very embarrassing. I didn't think I'd say that, but we're off to a start.
There we go. And Joanna, how are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. Whether or not you'll be able to hear this, depending on how excellently it is edited, I've got builders across the road. And the last 2 days, they've decided to start making noise, and they're currently making noise. So hopefully I'm covering it up with my wonderful words right now. But yes, other than that, I'm really good.
Good.
How are you, David? How are you?
I'm perfectly fine. I've had a bit of a run around of a morning, because obviously today we are able to book in our vaccinations, or at least my age group was. So I got all that done and sorted today. But then I had my girlfriend being there, like, I'm in lectures at the moment. Can you book in mine as well? And then I had to queue in the thing again all day, and so and then it's trying to organise it so that we're doing the same kind of places and all the time slots are booking out. So that was a bit of a run around, but now I've got my iced coffee, so you might hear some stirring every now and again, and I'm ready to go. So I was going to say, we all kind of know each other in this one as well. Sometimes it's normally like one or two people that know each other, but I think we all kind of know each other here. So
it's a little reunion. Yeah.
So I thought we could go into quickly how we know each other. So was it Chris, you and I met over at was it Sherlock the Game Is Now?
We did working at one of London's many escape rooms, but one of the best, I'd like to think.
It is great. I met so many fantastic people over there.
Absolutely.
I can't speak for how it is now because I've not been there for quite a while. I don't know if you have either, but yeah. So we
I walked past it completely accidentally. I was on my way to a dinner party in Shepherd's Bush. And cut through to Lidl. I was like, I can't not go and have a look outside. So I've got a few pictures of me sort of nostalgia-ing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is now the time that I share with people that I've actually never been to an escape room.
What?
I think it is.
It's not surprising, but at the same time, they're just really
I do
fun.
want to. It's definitely the vibe of something that I'd really enjoy. Just haven't got enough friends, basically. No, I probably do.
You can play them by yourself, or you've got your boyfriend you can take along.
Yeah. We actually got bought a board game version of Escape Room for Christmas. Currently still in the box and unplayed because, again, don't have enough friends. And you need 4+ players, I think. So one day Maybe.
Should have got the
We'll
parents
see.
involved. But yeah, so just to go into it as well, how do you two know each other as well?
The wonderful play that Joanna's holding up that nobody can see.
Which I haven't seen, the cover of for so long. It was a wonderful play written by a very good friend of mine called Josh Overton, called Sad Little Man.
Sad Little Man. Yeah, so 2017, which is 4 years ago now. Chris was our movement director and I was producing Sad Little Man. And I've got, no one can see this, but I've got my lovely signed copy from Josh and it's got the most beautiful message in, and I'm keeping that private because it is all for me. But so we worked on this show 4 years ago together. And I think, and I don't know if you remember, I bumped into you with Danielle at the Fringe 2019. You were exit flyering.
Yeah,
and
the last real Fringe. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The last real Fringe. Those are the days,
I'm
aren't they?
so glad I managed to get into that 2019 one, because we were there like, do we put it off another year? I'm so thankful we didn't put it off. Like our first and last Fringe show was that. So just to kick things off, we've got one question that we tend to ask everyone when they come onto the podcast, and so we're going to ask you as well. And I'm expecting some good ones today from you, Chris. So let her rip. So, what is your most obscure or embarrassing on-stage memory?
See, there's fucking loads, so it's difficult, and some for professional reasons I probably shouldn't say. But some of the top picks, I think, include. I remember I was on stage at the Hackney Empire, and I had to go on for somebody else as Athena, the goddess of war, in Horrible Histories, with no rehearsal. I think it was Hackney, and it basically. The costume was very, very feminine, not a problem. But it was a rap, and that was the thing that I hadn't really got my little head around, and didn't really know what it was going to be like. There were so many other things to rehearse, and so I sort of got on stage, and the music started, and all the stuff. And I don't know how to describe it other than utterly fucking mortifying. You know what I mean? It just at one point I feel like I was almost channeling Dizzy Rascal, and then I don't know. It was all. No, it just shouldn't have happened. Really.
Was it a good reaction at least, or was it a flop?
No, I think it was a lot of people collectively going, "What the fuck is that bearded man dancing around like the goddess of war?" I mean, a good reaction from everyone off stage, I think, was the fear of the build-up.
I love that.
I've fallen off of sets. I've once been very, very drunk on stage and not realised until the start of the show, which was a bit problematic. But that's why I don't act anymore. That's why I direct. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't matter so much. You're well within your right to be pissed at the first show. And...
I'll make other people dance and do embarrassing raps. That's my privilege.
I love that feeling of. I love it. Like it's like you say, mortifying when you do have that thing of just, I don't know what to do. This isn't working. It's not good. I have had it once, and it's only been one time, but it was for one of our shows where it was just so much of that feeling. I just upped and walked off. I just couldn't do it. Like,
it's like that dream, isn't it? That dream where everyone's like, why don't you know what your blocking is? Why don't you know when you are? And you're like, I'm doing everything I can. But when that actually does become a reality, it's
a different thing entirely.
Dreadful.
Yeah. So I was gonna just following on from that. I just realised the fact that like people listening who don't know you, we currently said that we worked at an escape room, immersive experience in London. Then you've worked on a couple of Fringe shows where you met Joanna. Then we also went to Fringe and we saw each other up there in 2019. Then you've also been for Horrible Histories, and you direct. So, Chris, what is it you fucking do?
That's the existential crisis, guys. That's the I don't know. It depends entirely who I'm talking to. Theatre maker is I don't know the least wanky, most overriding thing that I can think. I know, Joanna, the least
wanky though. I feel like
theatre practitioner.
It's
maybe practice. Yeah, maybe. I was in an artist feels way too far in the wank direction. Do you know what I mean? It's so difficult to do. But basically, I don't know. I'm a director mostly, a movement director. But I also work as a magician, so I do illusion consultancy on shows
so
as
wanky.
well. It's very, very, very geeky childhood. But I also write. I write music occasionally for theatre. I teach at drama schools and at places. Yeah, and then anything else if people will, chuck me money to do it. And I very, very, very rarely act occasionally as well if there's an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Well, which outfit would you say you prefer?
Director / movement director, I suppose. There's something about getting really talented people to be sort of a cohesive unit and to get something out of them that maybe they didn't even expect, or to steer a ship of exciting people towards a singular vision. I think is it's fucking great. It's a lot of hard work acting as well. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of moving around.
Yeah, it's much harder than just telling someone to do something.
Absolutely,
like supporting that relationship and development on the stage. It's
from a comfy chair with a
easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And usually there's someone that make you that tea for you.
I do, yeah, when it's good. Yes, yeah.
Especially if they want to get in your good books or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, it's when the one thing I found as well, jumping back and forth, is when I have gotten used to directing in particular style and, trying to be quite collaborative and stuff. But then as soon as you become an actor and the director might not have that same style or something, and I can't see me, if they don't either give me enough notes or they give me 2 notes, I start being panicking and what's going on? Am I not good enough? Have I done that wrong? No, I need to know what I look like because I don't currently know what I look like, and it's just very hard once you've started getting into directing to find that balance of acting again. Absolutely,
yeah. I've definitely gone back into acting processes and been and you have to bite your tongue because you're there for a job. Do you know what I mean? Your job is to contribute, but ultimately to follow the other person who's steering the ship that time, even if it when it's not you, which is difficult. It's bloody hard, isn't it? It's bloody hard. But sometimes quite freeing.
Just I've got a really good idea.
Yeah, exactly. I'll whisper it to someone else and I'll see if it gets around. Yeah.
Where's the assistant director?
Exactly. We'll become mates, me and the AD. That's what will happen. Yeah.
So have there been projects, and I suppose, that you or just discuss directors that act in their own shows? I'm going to leave that there.
I don't know many.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I know one director who writes, produces, and is in the shows for quite a big company, but I don't know many others that do it. I know some writers that are in their own work, and a lot of the new writing I direct is normally... I've done quite a lot of one-person shows quite recently. That was one of the... Maybe was one I was actually flying for last real Edinburgh. Yeah, but I don't know. I'd fucking hate the idea of it. But I don't think I could do it personally. Actually, no, there are more people. Now I say it, there are more people I know that do it. I know one guy had an assistant director who used to learn their blocking, so they could step out and watch it and then step back in and sort of be able to give notes, which is great. I think you've got to be so in love with performing to do that, to have all that extra stress and path of least resistance, I think.
I couldn't switch off. And I feel like, as you were saying before, of why is my voice going? I've spoken to people today. That, when you're stepping out, you can't see yourself in it and you want to know what it looks like, and being in 2 places at once is just so frustrating and just difficult to do. So just curious what people thought of it.
In a show, in a rehearsal, try to direct the moment and explain what was happening while simultaneously trying to deliver their lines. And it took them a little while just to realise that it was impossible, that you couldn't simultaneously direct the moment. But it was just, I think that highlights exactly the problem, doesn't it?
I think it's one of those where a lot of people from either young or upstarting companies, I say for myself, for many of the other out of bounds lot, Aaron included, we do a lot of he writes his own work and he acts them, and then he goes around and produces and directs as well. And I think that there's a lot of now, I don't know, it kind of ties into that triple threat culture that I've been hearing a lot of at the moment, being like, that's not really healthy, is it? Because they're expecting everyone to be able to do everything. And I think that's a very new thing that people are feeling the weight of. They feel the need that they have to, like yourself, do everything to be able to get any job they can possibly get. But it doesn't mean that everyone wants to be doing everything necessarily. Because I was going to say, if someone is like writing, producing, acting, directing on a professional level as a very well paid person, it seems a bit pompous, doesn't it? It seems a bit like up full of themselves and stuff. Like, what's his face from? He was in Sherlock. He wrote for Sherlock. Was it not Moffat? Mark Gatiss. That's it. Like, for him, he's a lovely guy, like great actor. But then also, whenever you see him, you're there like, oh, he must have been a writer in this then, because he always writes himself into it somehow, and you're a bit like, oh, all right, fair enough. And so when you're at that level, I feel like it starts wearing off of the like, oh, they're a hard-working, passionate person, and more into, right, you're just
some work.
You're just giving yourself stuff now, aren't you? Like, you know?
It's true, but also I think on the flip reverse, at the earlier stage of career, I think the same thing is true. So there's a very clever person who you can, loads of TED Talks on YouTube, called Rory Sutherland, who's sort of a behavioural psychologist who works in advertising. He's fucking fascinating. But he makes his point about, which is showing his age and my age, because it resonated with me, is that when you buy, when you used to buy, back in the day, a DVD VHS combo, most people wouldn't, because they would assume that something that can do two things wouldn't do either of them very well. So people would be more likely to buy just a DVD player and then a separate VHS player, because if it serves one function, it's going to be much better. Which obviously isn't the case, but I think there is something where you're like, well, I do a bit of that and a bit of that, and you sort of go, oh, well, you're probably not that great at either, are you? Where if you go, I'm a writer and this is my thing, then people go, great, that's really easy to sort of, but I don't know. I think it's difficult because we like definition and we like things to be certain, but life's not like that. It's difficult.
I always feel that because, yeah, I don't know about both you, and especially not Joanna on your side of the producing and then like a stage management side of things. Like, I definitely resonate with that thing of being a jack of all trades. But then you do, and I know it's not the full thing. You have all these things of like master of none, and you're like, no, but that's not the full saying either. But it's like, I do feel that I can do lots of different things and be average at them at the very least, and I can get it done. And people are sometimes quite like, oh wow, you can do so much. But at the same time, I look at someone who's focused purely on one thing for their whole life and they're bloody good at it, and I'm so envious of being like, you are just so good at your craft and you know exactly what you're doing with it, whereas for me, I'll just go run in and be like, I know half of it, let's go wing it. Like,
also, I think diversification of skills is so important. I think I've definitely got some gigs, like recently, for example, because there aren't many directors who are magicians. Do you know what I mean? That's quite a rare, that's a bizarre concept.
I mean, that statement on its own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Regardless of magicians actually being somebody who does
it still definitely sounds like someone you'd sort of actively avoid at a dinner party. But it's, do you know what I mean? But there aren't many of those people. There aren't many people that do both things, I think. And so it's easier actually to go when very specific things come up, or to go, oh, okay, but you do a bit of puppetry and you produce and you happen to be an actor as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I want to do it all. Do you know what I mean? There's so much stuff I want to try. I'm getting back into juggling at the moment as well, which I haven't done for ages. And it's just not for anything. I don't think it'll ever turn into anything, but I bloody love it.
No, I did that when I was learning to drive. I was just seeing how long it'd take for me to learn how to juggle, because then I could estimate how long it'd take me to learn how to drive.
That's brilliant.
I was like, cool. I did about 10 minutes a day of just basic juggling over the top of my bed, dropping it. And I did it for about 10 days until it clicked and I could do it. And so I was like, right, so if I try and do the maths, I can figure out that roughly if I have like 10 sessions at like 2 hours, I'll be at the point where I can do it basically, and then I can go from that point. So yeah, it was just a weird way in my head of being like, how can I learn things quicker?
It's a solid marker of your own progression. Yeah, I think that's really useful.
I think I'm the one that's just mind boggled by that. I'm sure there's some research somewhere that's like, oh yeah, we'll have this big group of people. We'll teach them how to juggle, and then we'll teach them how to drive, and see if there's a brilliant correlation.
It's a PhD for someone, isn't it?
Yeah. Should have done it from a
that would be quite
dissertation. Shit,
interesting.
now we're coming up with a good idea.
That's your one thing you were going to specialise.
Yeah. But no, Joanna, what was it? I was going to ask about your thoughts on that balancing out or dual roles and like loads of experience.
Dual
and stuff,
roles.
like...
So the time when Chris and I were working together was when I was doing dual roles a bit more obviously. I was stage managing, production managing, and producing at the same time, and that was my role on that show. So I'm credited twice in the book. Woo! Because I'm better than everybody, obviously. Massive sarcasm.
No, that's true.
Yeah, so I always used to have a battle with myself of which I had to do one. I had to pick either production or producing. And that was the first project that I was doing both on. And I was like, oh, I can do it for small scale. I can do both for small scale. And then the more and more production work I did, the further and further away I was getting from producing, because my CV and how I was selling myself to people was very production heavy, and I was getting those jobs and I wasn't getting producing work. And so I had to really stop and think to myself, I'm going to have to put everything on pause production wise and push all of my producing. And so that's where I've been in the last however many couple of years, I suppose. And it doesn't mean that I don't miss. I love being on QLab. I love being and putting up a rig and doing all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I haven't been able to do it because I've not physically been in a space for ages. But I think I've learned over the last year that those who've worked in production managers, stage managers, make the best producers, because they're the ones that deal with problems when a producer can't be there. So my role and hopefully the way that I am producing is try to eradicate problems for stage managers before they even occur. I don't know whether I'll ever go back into stage management again. I do love it, but we'll see.
It's an interesting fact, because you were saying like it is useful if people do have the experience of other things, because so in the same way that like someone who knows how to direct, just from what we've been speaking about, then act, as much as it could be quite stressful, they also do have that better understanding of what the process is and what that person might be trying to achieve. Sometimes, like me, you overthink it and you overanalyze what they're then analysing, but it's useful to understand the process, and I'm sure that's the same for other roles. But I wonder where that line is really, and I know I'm not looking for an answer here, but like it's just an interesting thought of where's the line of the usefulness of being able to do different job roles and types and having that experience, and just fulfilling the one role, you know? Because like we said, with I read an article on like triple threats, and how loads of musicals and professional musicals are now trying to run a fully fledged musical with everyone being able to sing, dance and act. And so they're then squishing down the cast to like 20 people rather than having loads of people with a chorus and stuff like that. And in this article, it was suggesting that that's killing musical theatre, because you don't have the chorus made up of just singers and specialising in that. You don't have this specialising in this. And then anyone who is just a really good singer won't get hired necessarily for a singing role, because they want them to be able to do everything and not just the one thing. Do you go? So yeah, it's just interesting. Where's that line currently of usefulness versus just ridiculousness?
Such a big good question, David. Such a big good question.
I don't
know.
I was pausing for a minute because I could see the cogs turning.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, off of that, Joanna, was your in via acting? So I think, you know, for a lot of people I know who work backstage or who aren't actors, you know, the first sort of place you meet the arts is usually youth theatre or drama, and sort of yeah. So I mean, going back years and years and years, if we're talking like primary school performance, loved it when I was in year 1, year 2. Give me Angel Gabriel, yes please. And then I had a moment where I had major stage fright. And so randomly at my primary school, the year 3s and 4s would perform the year 6's Liebers play, which had the year 5s and year 6s, and the year 6s all had the main parts. And I remember being in either year 3 or 4, not wanting to perform in that. So I got given the wonderful, just like slidey LEDs
because that's all that my school could have. So I did that. Then I got to year 5 and year 6 and I enjoyed performing again. But I always knew that when I was doing my GCSEs and my A levels of drama and theatre, that I was never going to be performing. I really enjoyed doing it, and my best performances were definitely at that age because that's when I was doing it. But I was always the one that was running around and setting all the props and really enjoyed doing the organisation side of getting that show to a place. And then realised that I'm not the funniest person, but somehow comical performance is where I was better at, because I could just really be a huge, big character and couldn't do any serious stuff seriously because I was a bit crap. But yeah, so in a weird about way, but when I really started in career mode and actually started getting paid for work, it was never going to be performatively. It was always going to be putting your props in the right place and hitting go on a keyboard.
Oh, maybe it is different strokes for different folks then, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to...
Where were you going?
I wasn't sure, to be honest. I was biding myself some time, David. I was collating extra info. But no, I suppose I was coming at it from the perspective of, I don't know, so I've met some technicians and stage managers, for example, who fucking hate theatre. And their into it was very not through the idea of this is a thing I love. This is a practical job that I can do and it pays the bills. But whereas some people did, wanted to be actors, and then just they fell in love with other things, another interest sort of took them, and then trying to sort of put that into the idea of being a triple threat and sort of where, I don't know, I'm trying to work out how young you'd have to start them off on everyone off on that if that was the new world order. Do you know what I mean? Would it mean that everything became... I don't know what I'm fucking saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't even think it is something that is consciously, like, people are choosing to do. I think it's just the industry is so hard to get into. People have started branching out into other things so that they're better. Like, for instance, like, as a performer, I know that my chances of getting hired are 10 times better, even if I just learn to play the guitar. And because when it gets to a show or an audition, and they're like, cool, we want someone to be able to act, but maybe play the ukulele or a bit over here, then I'm like, okay, well, I could play the guitar, I could probably like pick it up pretty easily, and then they're more likely to hire me than someone who doesn't. But then they're more likely to hire someone who knows how to play the ukulele straight up as well. And it doesn't matter if you're like the best role for it necessarily. And this is completely, assuming that the director doesn't want to go for someone who is fit for the role. They want someone who can do everything. Because you will have directors who are like, I don't care what you can and can't do, you're perfect for it. They'll have their methods and what they want from it. But yeah, I think it's just the industry so hard that people are just like subconsciously trying to improve their chances by taking on everything. And just like what you've done, just take whatever you can that money's being thrown at you for. So like, I never worked in escape rooms before, but I saw the job, what was it, for the front of house roles, for like the performing roles. And I was like, I act, I'll apply for that. Didn't get it, but they were like, do you want to do the backstage stuff? And I was like, job? Yeah. Yes, please, thank you. And so now I've got that experience under my belt. So,
absolutely. I think the unifying factor there, again, I'm going to say loads and then nothing, basically, is I think it's love to necessity, isn't it? In that if you are genuinely in love with the idea of singing, dancing and acting, and you happen to get a job that has those three things, then that's potentially more joyful and a better thing than if it's like, well, I'm going to have to teach myself to tightrope walk, even though I'm terrified of heights, because otherwise this is never going to happen for me. And I suppose one is more of an occupational hazard in the same way that in certain professions, you shouldn't eat certain things because you have to be, whatever it might be. Or you can't drink on a certain amount, which, rubbish, but whatever it might be. But so where love meets necessity, I suppose, and I feel that's often where, as a freelancer, I find myself in that void quite often. I think.
As long as I'm not working in an office somewhere, typing in numbers, I'm happy. Like, that's the...
Absolutely. Or convincing yourself that, or doing jobs that are parallel to what it is that, like teaching, for example. I bloody love teaching, and facilitating or whatever it might be, but I couldn't do it all the time. Do you know what I mean? And there's a nice little Venn diagram there between love and necessity, and that is the thing that pays the bills and I can't direct. But I do also enjoy it. And then you have, I don't know where the escape room sat on that spectrum.
I think it's just because it's a live entertainment thing, but also so you do also, if you have because we had a load of theatre technicians, didn't we? We had Alistair and stuff like that, who they didn't even want to do the acting side of it, and they had to act to be. They had to perform to a group of people, but then they also had to go and fix any of the puzzles that broke. And so, I learnt to solder whilst I was there and use drills and stuff properly, because as well as the acting side of it, you had to be able to do that to make sure it was up and running. And so I think it tied in a lot of those theatrical elements into one role, But I do understand, because I'm working, on a bar in the Mayflower in Southampton now, or Mars Studios, the new one. And it's it's just nice to be in a theatre again. I'm not the one on stage, but it's nice to be in the space, because that's where we love being. Absolutely, it's been so. I went to the fucking theatre the other day. I saw my first piece of art in so long, and just the house lights going down. Without making it too, let's hum in a circle. Do you know what I mean? Something in me just felt very much more complete than it has for such a long time. Oh God, I had that. It was Chichester Festival Theatre when they did Crave, when it stopped, by Sarah Kane, when it stopped, and I was supposed to go and see it live, but I ended up watching it online. And I tell you what, it's the first time in a while that I cried at some theatre, but it wasn't the piece that made me cry. It was intense, so I think it added to it. For anyone who hasn't, I'd recommend reading it or watching it if you can. But it was the fact that afterwards, because they were doing it live but in an empty theatre, and when they bowed and there was no applause, that broke me. I couldn't handle it, because it was imagine doing that. Imagine doing what you love and doing that your whole working life, getting to the point where that's the only payoff, really, isn't it? It's about the money, sure, but you do it for the applause and appreciation and respect that kind of comes with it as well, and not having that payoff at the end of a long run. I could not imagine being in that position. Yeah, definitely. And I suppose especially for actors who work more in theatre, I suppose your skill set is so highly tuned into usually being responsive. Do you know what I mean? And feeling where an audience are at that moment in time, and if you need to slow something down maybe, or pick it up a little bit, because you're they're seeing audience as one creature. So I think to suddenly not have, I don't know, it would be trying to ice skate with slippers on. Do you know what I mean? It's very similar, but almost not. How have you guys found watching theatre online? Can I ask? Great, that was a great face, Joanna.
So my experience of watching theatre online has been like the terrible Corona coaster phrase of, okay, cool, when everyone was first live streaming things and you got to engage with it and you got to watch theatre, it was great. Then I was like, no, because it wasn't made for this way, so why am I watching it? And then watching some performances or some new work that was being made for a digital format, I enjoyed watching that. And then I got bored and I got sad, because I was like, no, this isn't what I want to engage with, and stopped for a very long time. And then engaging with going to R&D sharings, people that were doing stuff in that way, and kind of seeing things at the start of development was so interesting to me, that they weren't in response to the pandemic, they weren't about the pandemic either. So it was like, oh, okay, cool, this is a world that makes sense. But I haven't booked anything to go and see any theatre yet. It's something I want to do, but I don't know what my taste is anymore. I don't know what I like anymore, because it has been so long to have been out of being an audience member. I'm a little bit intimidated by sitting in a seat again, and I don't know what I'm going to enjoy. And I think that's the bit that is probably why I've not booked anything yet.
I was having this conversation.
And there's slowly but surely, it's slowly but surely more and more things are coming at me, and I'm like, do I want to go see that? I'm not sure yet. So we'll see. Next conversation we have, I'll be like, oh my God, this is what I really like.
Well, I was talking to a friend about a similar thing, and just the pressure of it being the first show. What do I see? What do I go? It's like, actually, maybe we should have all just gone to see something that we knew we'd hate. Do you know what I mean? Or just something that's like, actually, thematically, this is I don't know, or something where, something that we knew we were, so the hopes weren't pinned on something. So, as it was, I saw a piece of dance and it was fucking brilliant. it was nice to come back.
Yeah, I see, because I think dance is easy for me because it's not necessarily anything I'm particularly good at. Did ballroom and Latin back in the day, but I love watching movement, and I have that was my undergrad dissertation of movement and how watching people's bodies move in certain ways makes you feel feelings and emotions. So I feel like, oh yeah, I'll ease my way in that way by watching dance rather than watching theatre, where I've got so many different things that I need to like take in. But who knows? I still kind of keep actually making plans to do this, and I've got theatre vouchers from Christmas and birthdays.
Oh, really?
Pre-pandemic that haven't been used yet, so I feel like I need to spend them on things as well.
Good old theatre
but what
vouchers.
I don't know if they're still valid. Who knows?
What's it? It's like it's interesting because at Mast, the first show that was the first public showing that we had back was Rambert, and so that was a nice dance piece, and it was just hilarious because you had a load of people coming in. And on the bar, they're like us, oh, how is it? How's the show? How's it? And they're like, oh yeah, it's brilliant being back. And I was like, how's the show then? And they're like, oh, I don't get it, but it looks pretty. And that was mostly everyone's responses. They're like, I don't care what it is right now. I'm just happy to be out. And I think in answer to your question, Chris, that's how I felt with it, is that I felt similarly to Joanna in that, like, even we did it. We were creating stuff. We created the podcast. Thanks to Aaron's idea, we did Unbox to try and release some of our creativity in a time that we didn't know how to release it. And so we did a load of that. And I feel like it has its place. And I think it's a good thing that everyone had to go through that in a way. And the industry will change because of it. And hopefully it'll be more accessible, because online is accessible for a lot of people, whereas in-person isn't. Like, I'm really gutted that, was it La Navette Better over in Plymouth, and I love them, and they're performing for like 2 weeks over there, but now they're doing it in person, I can't see it, whereas when it was online, I could see it if I wanted. But it's never the same, is it? When, like Joanna said, it's not in the same as in person. Like, you don't feel it, you don't get the reactions of the actors, you don't get those nuances from it which make theatre. And I was speaking to my housemate Harvey, and he was saying, about going to the cinema, it's not like sitting down and watching. You could do home entertainment, like watch Netflix and just have a nice night in with some snacks and watch whatever you want. But going to the cinema is an event. You're doing something for a purpose. You're choosing to go out and actually go and watch something and have the experience of doing that. And I think theatre is exactly the same. You choose to get out of the house, to go and watch something you might hate, to watch something you might love, and just play that risk and then enjoy it. Like, most of my best experiences have been, like I said earlier, from the audience, not from the show itself. Like, it was Nature of Forgetting with Theatre, when at the end the entire audience stood up, gave an applause, and that was another emotional moment, not because of the show, which was emotional, but because everyone in that room was applauding because they thought that was fucking amazing. And you could feel it, and everyone was happy and loved that piece. And that's what theatre is at the end of the day.
Absolutely. But I think there's something about a demand on time as well, though, isn't there? Like, if we were doing this conversation in person, it will take so much more of our day, which is that you're making a real time commitment to travel to, and if you are going to theatre, maybe you'll go for dinner first, or for some drinks first, or maybe you'll go for some drinks afterwards and sort of talk about the show. You're committing to an overall experience, aren't you? Just not something that you can sort of just close. And this is great, but if we were all, sat with a pint in the sun, do you know what I mean? I'm not saying I'd prefer it. I would. Fuck it. I'd prefer it every time. Not that this isn't great, but a pint in the sun would be brilliant,
do you remember? I think you were there, Chris, when we were over at Greenwich and by the boat, and it was you, me, Kay. I can't remember who else was there. We just went to go see your show.
Yeah.
your showing over that way. And afterwards we went and sat, and it was a really nice hot day, and it was starting to get to evening, but all the pubs were letting people come out with all their glasses and stuff, and we were sat along the stairs by the Cutty Sark, and there was a street performer who was like, what was it? I think he was a refugee, or like, I can't remember where he's from, but he was like Iranian or something, I can't remember, like, and he was doing like folk music on his guitar, and everyone was loving it. And it's just this one guy, and everyone was there with their pints, just sat on some public stairs, just going for it, joining in. Then you had other street performers going up, or people who knew the songs going up and joining in, and it's like that. We got free theatre just there, like just loving life.
Absolutely.
And that, online stuff at the end of the day might not be able to hit the same buttons.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's collective consciousness as well. Do you know what I mean? That's the idea that what we were speaking about earlier about the audience as one animal, I think, which is like Kate Tempest. I listened to a podcast of theirs, Kate Tempest, a podcast of theirs a little while ago. And they were talking about, the fact that as humans, there is this primal thing for us to sort of dance, usually in the dark, or just the sound of drums, and being a collective is and I think that's exactly what that was in Greenwich. It's not just, if it was just you and one person on a guitar watching it you'd feel, I don't know, it'd be like a horrible speed.
Got this awkward stand-up.
Exactly. I am enjoying it.
Making continuous eye contact as well. Just...
Yeah, I think going back to the digital thing, and I think this was probably my greatest frustration with it, is that you are seeing what a camera is showing you to see, and that's not what theatre is. That's what film is, because the director has specifically chosen it to be filmed in those ways, working with their cinematographer to have it in whatever format it's in. Whereas if you just get, okay, well, actually, no, I've paid for my cheap seats on the very, very back row. I'm not going to be able to see this person's facial expression in detail, and I want to see the whole thing. And that's why I've chosen the cheap seats, not because I don't have enough money. But that experience is far different to watching what's being filmed of it. And I'm saying this because I've recently watched Tenet, and then I've watched a couple of people discussing Tenet afterwards, and they're talking about how that's a moment to be played in that particular time, and every live performance of theatre is different. So even if you're watching a live stream performance, what you're seeing is different to what somebody in that venue is seeing. And I'm going to keep confusing myself if I talk about it in this hugely
you said
meta way.
Yes, exactly.
I literally watched it 2 days ago, so it's very fresh in my head about, oh my God.
But I've just started a huge film project as well, and I'm struggling with that so fucking much. It's a completely different language, but with different benefits. And Tenet, talk to me about that. Actually, I'm more interested.
Oh, do not, like, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's just one of those where it's super fast paced right at the beginning, and then it slows down, and then you just lose yourself. You don't know what's going on. But it's so interesting as well. Like
1 hour in, no idea what was going on. God explained it. The second hour, brilliant, cool, could understand it, but you need to then watch the first hour again.
You need to watch
That's
it
kind of where I am with it. Yeah, which is fine, because I'm going to save it and watch it with somebody I'm going to watch it again with someone who hasn't seen it, and watch their brain go for the first hour, and then I will hopefully get more from it. But yeah, it's worth watching if you are a fan of the Christopher Nolan brain.
But make a play like
Definitely.
that, no one would watch it a second time. Do you know what I mean? It's a film you go, I'll skip back.
That's ultimately what theatre is, isn't it? It's just the excitement that at any moment, those people, unlike film, could fuck up.
Absolutely.
But you don't want them to. You're not there to egg them on to fail. Everyone is behind you at every given moment. And that's why it's so exciting. It's walking the tightrope, but metaphorically rather than physically. Sometimes physically.
That's exactly why I stopped performing magic, actually, as a job, because I think it's the complete opposite of that relationship, in that you're going in saying, I'm going to try and lie to you and bullshit you, and you're going to try and work out how I do it. And if you don't work out how I do it, then you'll be entertained, but you'll feel a little bit stupid. And if you do get it, you'll think that I'm rubbish at my job, but you'll feel a little bit smug about yourself. It's like, that's a horrible relationship to start any sort of performance based dynamic. And it just got to me over a number of years. It's like, this is fuck it, it's like you're going into battle, I think. And I'm not about it.
You're going off on a rocky ground. I was going to say as well, in terms of the difference between like film and theatre, it's just that interesting thing of like I've been directing a show that's showing this and next week for Tottenham Drama Festival, so it's just like a little Amdram thing, perfect.
In London?
There's no, down Southampton.
Oh, sorry, but it's the top. Okay, from around.
Yeah, so was it? But down here, we were having in the rehearsal a discussion about like there's people at the back of the stage, and they're like, oh, are people blocking me, or am I distracting? And it's like, well, as long as you're either doing your own thing or looking at the person, you can, like a film director, control where the audience look. Because if I look at the back and you're looking at the person at the front, I follow your eyes to come back. Whereas in film, I'd find it really hard to know how to... Well, it seems very simple of like, you point the camera where you want the audience to look. But there's more stuff to that than, I probably let on. But it's just interesting, those differences of like the audience can and will look wherever they want. So everyone has to be doing everything to make sure that you're controlling where they're looking and stuff. But that's, again, another interesting thing is that if that doesn't work out, then suddenly the audience can, if they want, look over there because they're like, God, that person's hot. Or they could be like, oh, I'm looking over there because that costume's gorgeous. I want that costume. Because they want to, because they're allowed to. Whereas in film, you can't really do that unless you pause it or something.
Like everyone did for that Line of Duty episode. Who is that photograph on the screen? The whole of the United Kingdom pausing their telly at exactly the same time. Who is it?
So we were talking earlier about like emotional moments and stuff, right? What is a show or a piece that stuck with you for making you cry or is super, super emotional? What one piece would pop up in your head?
Oh, there's so many, which is such a fortunate thing to be able to say as well. Do you know what I mean? That's because there's loads that hasn't, but or wasn't planning to. But okay. Oh, off the top of my head. What has really wrecked me? I thought Bucket List by Theatre Ad Infinitum that was at last Fringe, maybe Fringe before actually. Jesus was amazing. What else has? I saw the Pina Bausch Company took on some guest choreographers for the first time. So they had Demetrius Papanou and Alan Lucian. I can never pronounce his last name. Oyen. That was the first time a guest choreographer worked with Pina Bausch Company since she died, and that was a double bill, and that was just, yeah. I want to read your dissertation as well now, Joanna, based on that conversation as well. I'm sure there was elements to that. Yeah, I don't know. I might shout out some more. That wasn't very quick fire. I'm sorry. If more come to me, I'll yell them. Not a hope in hell. Not a hope in hell.
Oh, come on.
No, that's very much why I direct. No, to be honest, if I could remember any of Athena, Goddess of War, I promise you I would. I would lay that beat down for you this hot second.
I mean, my quickfire question is not a quickfire question; it's a quickfire request. Rapping? Can you remember the rap?
And I was Athena quite regularly, so it was my first proper gig out of drama school.
I suppose leading on from that, then what
you get an agent because that's what you think you should do, and you go to auditions because that's what you think you should do, and a bit of you like, I think it's such a
director. Educational theatre in the horrible histories world has just become
they were two
huge,
horrible
and it's
history shows. It was the Groovy Greeks and the Incredible Invaders.
Live performance.
That was a cast of four.
Like?
Who did both shows?
Who was your actual character? As much as I love the idea of you as Athena.
So the audience had goggles on, sort of, and all stuff. Yeah, it was fucking nuts, actually, think about it. But they had one understudy that was me. So I had sort of eight tracks going through my head. And obviously, it's horrible history. So many accents and costume changes and songs and raps and so... Yeah, by the end, it was a year's contract. So by the end of that year, I think I'd almost played all of them. I think there was maybe one or two that I hadn't. But then people get ill and someone hurt their knee, so I was on for a couple of months at one point. But it was great. I mean, it was probably the most money I will ever earn, and I saved none of it. It was got really into drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've had a previous discussion about what happened to that money as well.
It went on silly shit. That's what happened.
So going into that, I was going to say, we were asking about the main question earlier, like most embarrassing stories and stuff like that. What I'm thinking of, I'd really like to know some of the worst experiences, like quite quickly, but a censored version of it. So without naming names, without saying any shows or anything like that, what's kind of the worst stuff that's happened? So feel free to censor yourself. So yeah, we're not trying to get you a bad rep or anything.
Absolutely. Well, their spotlight pin is no, I don't. So you mean in terms of working with actors, or just dreadful?
Anything you can think of, just either the worst experiences, most embarrassing, like anything.
Let me think. I don't know what I can say. I mean, the time I was really drunk on stage was a kid's show, and that was a real defining moment for me about realizing that I 100% was in the wrong job. My mate was leaving the country for a couple of years, and I'd gone out the night before just to say, and then I was the first person on stage in that show, and just remember looking at the audience being like, fuck, this is... See how this goes? And then so I had to launch it. So that was pretty bad. I've never had nothing weird like throwing up or passing out, I don't think. I've had a few show stops where people have injured themselves. Oh, there's going to be loads, and I'm going to finish this and be like, the time that someone shit in the sink or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there's something. I'm sure there's stuff out there. Maybe not. Maybe it's just other people's. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, okay. Well, if there was anything else that was really bad.
And also, how do you make it cryptic? Do you know what I mean? Without being too obvious. I was talked about in a show once. I was as myself, which was fucking horrible. Because it was quite a sort of honest piece of like performance art, I suppose, to a degree. No, I knew. Can you imagine if I didn't know them? No, I did know them.
Did you know them, or was this completely?
And then by some, I think I got there. I ended up on the
There was
front
this
row,
thing
which
that
is just
happened
not
where this
what
thing
you should do,
happened,
do you know
and
what I
it
mean?
made it
So
really awkward for that thing.
I've got one.
And that person.
There's a show in Edinburgh that I don't know if they still do it anymore, but it was called A Young Man Dressed as an Old Man Dressed as a Gorilla Sits Rocking in a Rocking Chair for 55 minutes while a Viking struggles with a cryptic crossword. And nothing happens, basically. It is that a young comedian will dress up as a gorilla, also dressed as an old man, and this young comedian will rock in a rocking chair for 55 minutes and does nothing else. Meanwhile, another comedian is dressed as a Viking and just sits on stage and does a crossword. It was at the Purple Cow at Underbelly, and it sells out every year. So it's up to whatever the audience do. So if people walk out because they don't get it, the audience boo them. It's that collective consciousness thing again, actually, we were talking about, isn't it? If those people come back with beers, they get cheered. Someone once put a banana under the rocking chair and realised that the monkey would just very slowly start to rock in a 360-degree circle throughout the show. And so this was what was going on, and I was young and foolish, and with my mate, who's a performer, and we'd consumed quite a lot of Buckfast. If you don't know what Buckfast is, it's mad popular in Scotland, but it's made in Devon. I want to make a show about it one day because I'm a bit obsessed by it, because it makes people fucking crazy. It's got more caffeine in it than anything else in the world, and it's just high. Yeah, it's fortified wine. And after quite a few buckies, and going into that show, we thought the only thing that was sensible to do would be to run on stage a mangina. So the two of us sold out thing, just legged it downstage, wrapping our clothes off, but got on stage, tucked our cots between our legs and went, "Hooray!" And wasn't sure what reaction we were going to expect. It wasn't the first nudity in that show. Someone else had streaked, and so I don't know. It's like what the audience decided to do. So clever. Well, it's not. We were just so stupid. Was just to take our clothes and to distribute them across the audience. So you then had two young naked men desperately trying to scramble across this crowd of people in order to get their clothes back.
It's one of those where if you were watching yourself, you probably would have been having the best
Or
day
more
of your
likely,
life.
going,
But like
drunk twat?
living it,
You know what I mean?
is
Who's
one of
that
the
young
worst
prick
moments.
ruining the fucking fringe for everybody? And it was me. It was I. I think that's one of my. Yeah, that's between necessity and love, I suppose. It's yeah.
Well, nice wrap up there. So, on that note, we'll leave everyone with that thought in their heads of Chris Yarnell's mangina. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Chris. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's nice to see your faces. I'm in London still for a bit, so I mean you can edit this out. But if you're about at any point, come. Let's go for a pint in the sun.
Yes, let's do it. Well, that being said, do you have anything you want to plug?
I don't. Not at the moment. I'm doing a big year's project with Arts Council with the Developing Creative Practice, which is all about film. So there'll be some of those will come out at some point. But no, I haven't. Do you know what I mean? I'm working a few bits, but fuck knows when they'll be in theatres and stuff, or they'll be out and about. When they are, I'll let you know with.
Let us know when they are, and we'll come along and watch them.
We'll have drinks. We'll have drinks. I'm just so excited that pubs are open. It's a real big thing.
So that was Chris, and what an amazing conversation it was. I feel bad for posing all those big questions to. At one point, he, like you said, the cogs just turned in his brain, and he couldn't cope with it. But it was
and throwing a question back to me so that he could have some extra time to think. Be like, Joanna, just answer this for a second, so I can like really delve into what I actually think about
classic move. Yeah, no, it was fantastic. And if people enjoyed the episode today, as I said at the beginning, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at OOB Theatre, Out of Bounds Theatre on Facebook, and on our Patreon as well. So continue to follow us on there, and thank you for your support. And if you want to find more, it's all in the show descriptions down at the bottom.
We will be here again, same time next week, where we will have another new guest to be decided. We are waiting on people's availability. But yes, we will be here again and looking forward to having our next offstage conversation.
Yeah, so all that's left to say is thank you for joining us, and join us next week for another offstage conversation.